My original plan for The Strangers Prey at Night was to make two videos. First, a spoiler-free review, and then second, an explain video like the one I did for Annihilation, where I go over spoilers and tell you more in-depth what I thought of the movie. After seeing it though, I'm feeling angry, let down, and basically just disappointed, so I decided I'm gonna make one all-encompassing video that tells you why you definitely shouldn't see this movie. When I saw The Strangers back in 2008, I was terrified. I thought and still think it's the scariest movie I've ever seen. The Strangers Prey at Night, however, is an inconsistent mess that can't decide whether it wants to be a remake, a sequel, or a spiritual successor to John Carpenter's take on the Stephen King novel Christine. At the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to the family of four that we spend the entirety of it with. Christina Hendricks plays the mom Cindy, Martin Henderson plays the dad Mike, Lewis Pullman plays their son Luke, and Bailey Madison plays their daughter, and I guess the main character Kinsey. The first big problem with this movie is that there isn't a single likable or relatable character in it, and that's mostly because of the writing. The dialogue is terrible, and all of their character traits are totally surface level. Kinsey, for example, is upset through most of the first act because she's getting sent to boarding school, so she spends all of the time with her parents and her brother fighting with them or running away from them. It just doesn't really work. I get that she's upset because she's a teenager, but her character never evolves past "I'm the upset, rebellious teenager," and nobody else really gets much better. 5 minutes in, the car is packed, Kinsey is sitting in the back seat crying, which is kind of sad, but it doesn't matter because her parents shut the trunk, do this weird secret handshake thing, and then act like they're going on vacation. They never even seem remotely concerned or upset about the fact that they're shipping their daughter off to boarding school. Luke is even more of a cliche. His entire character is basically boiled down to the older brother who's kind of mean but also likes baseball. But it doesn't matter because the dialogue they're all given to work with is impossible to navigate regardless of talent. And on top of that, the actor they picked to play Luke has a receding hairline and wrinkles even though he's playing a high school senior. It's just so lazy, and it sets a low budget tone right off the bat. I just mentioned that this movie is trying to be three different things at once, and this is where it's trying to be a remake of the first film. Everything about the introduction of the strangers themselves is the same as the first movie, but much quicker and somehow worse. Mike goes to make out with Cindy, the doll-faced girl knocks on the door, her face is covered in shadows of course, and she asks for Tamara before leaving. She even comes back a little later to ask for Tamara again. It's exactly the same. It's not only, again, lazy, but it removes all of the tension. All of it. Even if the characters were developed and somewhat likable like Kristen and James were, it still wouldn't be creepy because we've seen it all done before. The difference is that the first movie was built on subtlety and realism, which is something sorely missing here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're in luck, because my buddy Andrew Wright, aka Dr. Udru, was kind enough to share some of his research on the first movie with me.
Originally titled The Faces, The Strangers was written by Brian Bertino in 2004, inspired by the 70s era thrillers he grew up on. In Bertino's initial draft, the man in the mask wore a gray suit and a white mask resembling a smiley face, while Dollface donned a strawberry shortcake mask. These masks were later changed to look like a scarecrow and a Cupid doll, respectively, with Pinup Girl vaguely resembling Betty Boop. When original director Mark Romanek dropped out, Bertino himself stepped in. Bertino set the strangers in a 70s era ranch house because he grew up in one, and hoped it would give the audience a sense of familiarity. The interior sets were built inside a warehouse in Florence, South Carolina. Meanwhile, the exterior shots of the Hoyt's house were of a property in Timmonsville, South Carolina. The Strangers was filmed between October 2006 and January 2007, and was shot in chronological order. Actors Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman ran sprints around the set in order to emulate the out-of-breath fear of their characters. Bertino also had random sounds played throughout the house in order to creep Tyler out further. Unfortunately, Tyler wound up with tonsillitis due to the large amount of screaming her role entailed.
And that's about it. So back to you, Jimmy.
To be blunt here, I don't think Roberts realized how terrible these characters were, especially when you compare them to James and Kristen, until they were well into filming. But instead of going back and reshooting things, rewriting some of the script, and I guess fixing the characters, he just decided to start killing them all. Cindy and Mike are the first to go, and the problem with both of their deaths is that Roberts has no idea what he's doing in terms of pacing, and it sucks because on paper, they both sound pretty cool. Cindy and Kinsey lock themselves in the bathroom and they try to escape through the sunroof of the camper. Cindy realizes that there isn't time for both of them to escape, so she sacrifices herself to save her daughter. At this point, we've spent about 10 or 15 minutes collectively with these characters, so it's almost impossible to care that the girl is watching her mother die in front of her. It's the same situation with Mike. He finds his wife dead, but I couldn't bring myself to care at all because the scene is about 12 seconds long and their relationship has almost zero development. Mike and Luke jump in their van to find Kinsey and escape, but they end up crashing into a trailer and Mike gets impaled by a piece of wood. He sends Luke after Kinsey and Sackhead gets in the front seat of the car. Mike can't move, and for all he knows, this guy might have just helped kill his wife, but unfortunately Robert's directing just can't keep up. It's not scary, it's not emotional, and I just don't care. I will admit that once the kids are on their own, things do get better because they put up a fight and actually manage to kill all three strangers. In fact, the best scene in the movie is the one that's partially shown in the trailer when Luke faces off against Sackhead at the pool. He somehow manages to kill Pinup Girl and Sackhead gets pissed and starts swinging his axe at him. The scene is edited well, it looks great, and it has some actual genuine tension. It all goes to shit though once they fall in the pool because Luke drops the knife for no reason, but before that, it's pretty good. Another scene that's almost good is also spoiled by the trailer. It happens right after Dollface kills Cindy and she chases Kinsey towards the playground. On the way over, Kinsey passes the pickup and it starts chasing her, so she hides in a big metal tube, and the best scare in the whole movie happens, but it was ruined by the trailer, so that sucks. Next, we're gonna do some basic math to explain a giant plot hole that pops up in this scene. There are 3 strangers in total, right? During this scene though, Sackhead is busy killing Mike, Dollface is chasing Kinsey on foot, and Pinup Girl is in the metal pipe waiting for her while the car herds her into it. That's all 3 strangers accounted for, so who's driving the car? Funny enough, Roberts actually told Bloody Disgusting in an interview that Christine was a huge inspiration for this movie. It's a massive editing error, sure, because The Strangers is not a supernatural kind of universe, but still the car does become sentient, and I think that's kind of funny. There's also some other small throwbacks, like the title treatment used in the movie, which is different than the marketing, is straight off of a Stephen King novel, and also the font they use in the credits. It's small, but I guess I appreciate that it's there. The biggest callback to Christine is the soundtrack, which is full of awesome 80s jams, and I have to give Roberts credit here because they're all great songs and none of them are low-hanging fruit classics. It's not going to come as any surprise, but the shot work in this movie is wildly inconsistent. A lot of the interior shots look okay, and most of the exterior shots look really good. The environment where it takes place does it a lot of favors. The movie takes place over the course of one night. There's a lot of rolling fog. Kentucky is just, it's a really cool place to film a movie. It kind of feels like Camp Crystal Lake before all the kids show up. But then there's this one thing that someone is doing. It might be the editor. I think it looks digital, but it also might be the cameraman. They do these zooms that are awful, and they come up multiple times in the movie. I'm doing it right now so you can see what it's like, and I'm really not far off from what it looks like in the final product. I'm really not trying to hold this movie to too high a standard, but I'm not lying when I say that the scariest movie to me is The Strangers. It's timeless. It still scares me just as much now as it did when it came out. And I'm just really disappointed at how soulless this movie is. I wish there was one thing I could point out to change that would make it so much better, but there just isn't. The directing, the acting, the script, the dialogue, everything about it has issues. There's really only a couple things that are worth seeing in this, and honestly, I don't think you should go see it. But if you do, you should let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, the best way to let me know is to subscribe and hit the thumbs up button. But that's all the time I have for today, guys. So as always, my name is Jimmy Champane, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.